are you doing?
Doing well. Doing well. It's been a rough couple weeks
Mhm.
with, circumstances, but I was able to have a moment and spend some time with Pete. And but other than that, it's been good. It's been good. I think it was a shock to all of us.
Bobby Nash did die last week. Um, how was it being a part of that like series defining episode?
Oh goodness. It was a pleasure, absolutely. But I'm very humbled that I'm I've been brought back into the fold by Tim in the way he has. Tommy was apparently, I guess, besides Gerard, like one of the first 118ers, and that was pointed out to me. And I'm like, Tommy's an old school 118er, which is like really cool because Bobby and I have had our moments, and I can't want to give much away here, but um, he was very much like a role model to Tommy as well. So it was hard for Tommy, but it was I felt it was just really fulfilling and kind of them to add Tommy to just this whole unfortunate circumstance, because he sacrificed a lot and for Bobby as well. So he had his own personal relationship with him, but it's uh it's been as an actor, I've been crying straight for the last 2 weeks, but it's been just so wonderful that they consider me part of, you know, the
Mm.
118 for at least the moment that we have to lay Bobby to rest.
I do want to dig more into some of what you just said later on, but I do want to
Have
co
you seen the upcoming episode?
no, no, I have not. Um, but I do want to talk about the really cool stuff from this episode, which was all the helicopter stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The chase, the whole helicopter chase was like super cool. What was your favorite part about filming all of that?
Well, I was a walk-on at the USC,
Hmm.
and to be able to, and Tim made it a point. When Tommy says to Buck when he leaves with Oliver for Vegas, he
Hmm.
said, "Do you remember when I said that I was gonna fly a helicopter to the Coliseum?" There was like a line such as that. We didn't make it in, but we ended up. He kind of like referenced that. And we flew into the Coliseum, and it was really kind of cool for a first circle because when I was leaving USC, I had every intention to become an actor. I had every intention to fulfill what I believe to be my prophecy, and just pursue this enigmatic career. And so to have the helicopter land in the Coliseum that I'm flying and evading helicopters was like it was surreal for me just because it was a real full circle-esque moment. But I've done a number of action movies and a lot of action sequences and films and shows and stuff, but I've never been in a helicopter chase, and I've never been the one to steer such a like the scene. First of all, the scene didn't. It was so intense. Like it was like two helicopters were chasing us, which meant there was three helicopters and then four helicopters in the sky because one helicopter had to get all the footage. And
Hmm.
I'm beyond anything. I feel lucky that I was part of such a practical thing because everything is moving to digital, and the feeling of just being around the helicopters was like this is real. This is like the investment, the sacrifice that the studio has made, and everything. And I get to be the one in the driver's seat. Like this is I got this, Katie. Um, but no, it's been surreal. The whole Coliseum and the flying was cool, and it was just great. Felt real.
Yeah, the practical stuff was like one of my favorite parts of it because on screen it just looks so cinematic. And I mean, I know 911 has done a lot of like big set pieces like that, but that just felt like something a little different than what they've
Yeah.
done before.
And I feel like practical always works, whereas digital is kind of hit or miss.
Mhm.
And I think in a time where we're kind of losing touch with the practicality of
Yeah.
stunts and special effects. It was a really nice experience. And it was just, I think it worked out well. I mean, by the end of the show, I was just completely in stitches. Every time. I watched it like 4 times, and every time during that last, because they set us up, Katie. They set us up. Everything was good, and we were good.
Yeah.
And I'll see you next week. And then no, he shuts the door.
Yeah.
But that's life. And that's the beautiful thing is like there's so many things that are unexpected that we just don't know, and
Mhm.
tragedies that spring upon us, and we have choices to make. And that's why I think it connects so well. It's because like this show is just so not real, but at the same time, like it's so palpably real with the relationships and the circumstances within the chaos.
Mhm.
It's a wonderful.
I've watched it a few times and I cried every time. So,
Yeah. God. I'm here for all the
yeah.
parts we have left. I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
oh my God.
Yeah, that
I
line
can't cry.
really
I
got.
can't cry now. Okay.
Okay, well, we can move back on to the fun stuff and then we can cry later.
Okay.
I do think it's funny that Tommy appears to have a habit for stealing government property for the 118. The last time he got a medal for that, but this time he was running from the army, the military, and the FBI. Are there going to be any like larger repercussions for that, or is another medal in his future?
Are you trying to get Tommy thrown in jail, Amy?
Well, no.
Okay. Are there repercussions? You mean like legal ramifications to
Mm,
my
yeah.
well, I don't want to not I'm in a tight spot.
Yeah,
I
don't yeah. Whatever you can tell me.
there's there's the magic of TV, which
Hmm.
is great. The beauty of Hollywood, which is lovely. I still have questions remaining in terms of like I try to figure things out and try to like, you know, I try to understand the potential consequences to my
Hmm.
actions. I still have questions. But Tommy's a hero, and Tommy's gonna do whatever Tommy needs to do to save his squad,
Hmm.
regardless of what that means. So at this point, Tommy's the type that's like whatever
Whatever.
comes.
Yeah.
So it's pretty admirable in a sense.
Yeah. Okay, so during the helicopter chase, Tommy
Mhm.
tells Buck he's doing this for Chimney, which is a really nice callback to season two when Chimney saved Tommy's life. Why do you think Tommy keeps answering these calls to help Chimney in the 118?
Um, well, if I speaking on how I know Tommy, if Tommy, I mean, Chimney saved Tommy's life straight up. Like
Mhm.
that chimney, and I joke with Kenny that he saved my life because he carried me out of the building. There was when he's within that tight shot of he walking out of the building, he's got me and my 70 pounds of gear on. So I'm about 220 with another 300 pounds that he's walking with, and I'm like I joke with him. I don't think you could forget that, especially when you're a firefighter and you know what happens when you get stuck in a fire consumed building, and then all of a sudden he pops out and saves his life. I mean, like that's something that you'll always. I don't think you'll ever second guess a call to rescue these individuals because they all played a part. Ty and Tommy personally surviving, but also, I mean, Chimney kind of reframed a lot of how Tommy viewed the world. He was very cut off. He was very resistant to open himself up to anyone to make new friends. And I think the moment when he said Chimney, do you think about me at all? He's like, if I thought about you at all, I probably wouldn't.
Mhm.
And that was just Tommy trying to protect himself in a real immature way. He didn't want to get close to anyone because, people can die. And I think he was trying to fit into this Gerard-esque type of framework where only the only the true men survive or some bullshit like that. Which he eventually, I think, him saving Chimney saving his life, I think, really turned a lot for him in the sense of like how wrong he was
Mhm.
to this guy. He wasn't nice necessarily to Chimney, but Chimney did it anyway. And he saved his life anyway. And he ran in there. And I think Tommy adopted some of that. I think Tommy's hungry for tutelage in the sense where, he's really adopted some of the qualities of these characters of being of their immense heroism, like this their unwillingness to say to not like they'll run in a burning building. They'll do all these things to save people. And it's like, what is, and then so a helicopter chase? I got it. Like, if we got to save all these people, Tommy's got it. Like, he's now, Tommy's now like in the, and I don't want to call it like, it's like at the 118, when you go to the 118, like, it's almost like on the inside, we're superhuman. It's like we will go to the end of the earth for each
Mhm.
other. And when Bobby showed up and Bobby kind of galvanized that idea in the 118. I think the 118, in my mind, like in the 118 beyond, if you put all the shows in the same universe, all the fire shows and everything, like this,
Mhm.
there's something supernatural going on at the 118 where,
Yeah.
if you buy into what's going in, you will have angels or something because it's hard to delineate, even though it is a show and I'm an actor. It's hard sometimes because when I was looking at the monitor and watching Buck, I right after they're like cut, all right, and that was the martini shot. And I mean, it just came upon me and I had to cry. Like I had to fully cry because I was in such a like committed state of watching the love of my life, in that circumstance. And so I had to take a moment and I was like, this shit is real. Like, I don't care what people say about everything, but like, we feel these feelings and we circle, and like, all of us have felt personally as if, one of our paternal leaders, um, have sacrificed himself for us in such a big way. So it's like, it's harder and harder to detach from that. But, yeah, I just think he wants to be a hero. He is a hero and he'll do anything to fit that role when it arrives.
There is an interesting dichotomy that exists in Tommy. He like when it comes to like really personal things, I feel like he runs away, like the breakup in 806. But when he someone asks for his help, he like shows up in like really big ways like that. What do you think is like the source of him running away in like more personal moments versus like the big hero moments where he shows up for?
Oh goodness. Well, I don't want to interfere with any type of backstory or whatever it's written, so I can give you my 2 cents as a character. Um, I think just as a man, it's a lot easier to use what we have. So I'm a bigger guy. I'm pretty brave. I can, and if I were in a situation where I was called to help someone, I mean, it would click in and I would do something. And I think it's programmed in men more so than being emotionally available and opening up because that is in and of itself terrifying. To someone who not only hasn't had much experience, I think, connecting with people there's a trust issue with Tommy. Um, but then there's also, I'm not too sure about the specifics on, I don't know what was happening with Abby. I didn't know, you know, it must be hard. It must be hard to really have to deal with the cover, the position he's in. Um, but to answer your question, um, I think if you ask any guy, if it's like, what would be harder to save those kids or, I mean, realistically, when it comes down to it, they could say it, but I think that connecting with I don't, Katie. Let me start that again. I would say strength and size and whatever is it's a whole different thing when it comes to communicating feelings and emotions and opening up for the fear of rejection. I think Tommy has just dealt with not only so much rejection, but like the rejection that you don't want to have.
Mm.
And so it's left him in a place where he doesn't know who to trust. He doesn't have anyone to trust. He doesn't, so he hardens. And I think it's like a calcification of his soul. And he kind of never needs to open up until this person he's, in a situation with, like, there is a spark and there is something special. So he's learning how to deal with this. And it's not something you learn in school, and it's not something you learn after your first, second relationship. It's something you learn, with mileage. And I think it's a lot easier for Tommy to not talk about things. And I think if I just don't think guys are great with like laying the foundation. I think women are just so much more capable of emoting on different planes at the same time and communicating feelings, even if they're like a lot of feelings, they get through. And I think a
Mm.
lot of guys don't know how to break through that.
Mm.
With guys with trauma, a lot of trauma at least. But I don't know. I mean, is it easy for you to open right up and communicate if you really like someone?
No,
Okay.
I don't think that's ever easy.
Yeah. It's hard. And especially when it's the one, it's like your white whale. It's like, oh my God. You got to deal with the fight, flight, or freeze. But I think since the beginning, and I think a lot of times boys in society, it's like there's a emphasis placed on get the job done and do this. Like emotions were never really, when I was growing up, they weren't really, my mom was lovely and wonderful considering my emotions, but there was no like therapy. It wasn't like a popular thing as much, and it wasn't normal for boys to cry. Like I was remember people don't cry, don't cry. I'm like, who cares if I cry? I was thinking like when I was young, like, what does it matter to you if I don't cry?
Mhm.
I grew up to be a big guy, so it's like, um, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I guess people assume that I'm now this macho guy, or, I work out when I was in college, or like meathead because I played football and whatnot. But it's like, it's just hard for Tommy. Okay, it's hard for
Going back to the helicopter stuff,
Tommy.
um, after he says he's doing it for Chimney, he very quickly assures Buck he's also doing it for him. How would you categorize where Buck and Tommy stand with each other at the moment?
Katie, I love your questions. I really do. I want to say that, and what's funny is that I think this fandom is fascinating, and I think their theories are fascinating. But like every now and then, I try to like chime in because I'm a fan of the show too, and they're like, "No, no, no, we don't need you." And I'm like, wait a minute."
Yeah.
But I get it. I understand. I think Tommy's trying to do a good deflecting at the top, but I think he's coming to grips with the fact like he doesn't need to put this shit on. I think historically Tommy would just blow it off and just be like, whatever. I don't think he's ever necessarily met someone that he's been as enthralled by as he is with Buck. I think he finds him adorable, and um, and I think he doesn't know what he's feeling, but he's feeling something that's really leveling him
Mhm.
in the sense where he's figuring things out as long as it's taken, like, because this is a big, plus it's a workplace fraternization, so it's like what I can't imagine that Tommy's not thinking like, what if that happened to Buck? What if it was Buck? Because I don't Tommy couldn't have known what was happening to Bobby
Mhm.
when he was dying, so when I was watching him, or when Tommy was watching him, in my mind, there's a thought of like not fear. Like in that moment, I think he was just so crushed, and it hurts when you see someone going through something that you love, and
Hmm.
but it's also like scared that this could be the guy that breaks him. You know,
Hmm.
like there's always that consideration because I don't know how sure-footed Tommy really is as much as he appears to be. And then
Yeah.
I don't know the repercussions of what that would mean if that was his soulmate or his love of his life, and then he something happened to him, or like it's there's all these are all kind of calculations I think that Tommy would make considering he's a pilot and he has to think things through beforehand, you know. So I and it's just because he loves what he does, and it's tough.
The last time they saw each other, they almost got back together, but then they got into a fight. Is there going to be any more resolution or yeah, resolution to that fight?
If there is, I'm not privy to it. Uh, I think the and for you, I think that was. I mean, there was. It's see from what I've watched, there's still you don't just get rid of a spark. It doesn't work like that. Like it's whatever happened happened. I didn't think Tommy needed to leave when he left. I thought he could have they could have talked a little more, but
Yeah.
he'd had a little fit and he stormed out. But I don't I can't tell you because I don't know. And I would love to. I mean, every page is a new adventure with this
Mhm.
show. So I would love to see what Tim has in his brain, if anything. But I can't be the one to ask on that one today, I guess.
In your opinion, what is the core of Buck and Tommy's issues? Like why can't they move forward at the moment?
Um, they don't really talk about like they do, but then they just jump to sex. But it's like when he starts, I thought that I don't need to have feelings for everyone to have sex with, and that one like that was just a statement that continued the conversation. Tommy needs to be a little more thick-skinned. I feel like it's getting to the point as a viewer. I'm like, come on, man. Like, what is this? Like, you guys are clearly getting along. You clearly like each other. But I think Tommy can just like his book. That was an honest statement. If he said that, I don't think he was trying to hurt him. I think Tommy had a little hissy fit and ran out. Um, Communication, I think, is the biggest thing, and I think that I mean, if Tommy were to have to really open up, I think you'd be spending a lot of time with your tissue box, as would a lot of people. Be right here,
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't leave your side. Um, so yeah, from the looks of it, I mean, they're professional,
Hmm.
but hopefully love can find a way.
I love that. I hope so too. Um, I think you might have gone over this already, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. What do you think was running through Tommy's mind while he watched Buck on the video monitor?
Well, clearly something horrible had happened, but then I'm looking at him rolling around on the floor crying, and Tommy just, I think Tommy, for the first time in his life, like, just wanted to be there. And, like, I think Tommy, like many dudes and guys, have this proclivity to try to, like, let's fix that. Let's patch that up. We're good to go. What was that? All right, good. Like, and he just, sometimes you don't know what to do. And sometimes you don't, but it's being okay with not knowing what to do and just being there for the person that you love. I think that was playing a part of it. I think he was just overwhelmed with the fact that he's watching because he watches screens. He's an air, he's very technical. He's a airline air he's watching he's an air pilot. He's a fighter pilot. Like, this he's a high functioning, highly calibrated human being. So throwing in emotions, it does not work well with his processing. But I think in that moment, he was ready to just like he was ready to go in after him. Like he didn't like these are the feelings that he's never really been confronted with. I think in terms of like this human being is all I care about. And it was tough. It was tough because they everyone handled it, and when they delivered the news, it was just like. And I'm even lucky that I was able to get in for that 1 second. Like I love that they let Tommy have his moment to feel all this. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think Tommy's just in his mind in love.
Yeah, I love that they showed Tommy in that moment too, just because I mean he was in the tent with all the monitors. It makes sense to like go back to him in that moment. I imagine scenes of like intense grief like that are really tough to do. How do you like prepare yourself for those big emotional scenes, and then how do you like step out of it once the scene is over?
Well, about 12 years of acting training helped to where because I didn't get any word on that scene. They're like right at the end, on the day, they're like, we're gonna add this scene, and then I was like, oh my god, but it was nonverbal. But then
Mm-hmm.
it was like Tommy is watching Buck. Now I had a conversation with Dawn. I have through training and through study and through my commitment to what I do, like I can cry I can turn the faucet on and off and higher or lower, wherever. But so I was like, do you want me like teary, full teary? And Tommy's not the guy to be sobbing. So like, and I wouldn't even be surprised if I didn't even know if I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't know he was crying, that he was just standing there like frozen. Because well, what can you do? You're on a monitor. You can't go in there. You don't have your helicopter. You don't have your armor. Like
Mhm.
he's a very vulnerable position. Even like he was holding himself. Um, but I have a lot to work from in my life that I've had to deal with, that I can pull on considering the circumstance, and it helps me get to a place of high emotionality. But the best thing to do is you have to be there. You have to be there already. You can't get in there and then wait for the tear to drop and then wait one one more. It's like it's just you can't. An actor never necessarily discloses his black bag, but I have plenty in my life that I think about, and it doesn't take too long.
Okay.
How's your pup?
Oh, she's good. There's a lawnmower that started and she started getting a little antsy because
Oh,
of the lawnmower, but
yeah, she's right, like Tommy, ready to save the day.
yeah,
Don't mess up, Katie.
defending the house from lawnmowers. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. Tommy was, or you mentioned this earlier, but Tommy was a part of the original 118. Um, when you think back to the Bobby Begins Again episode in season two, I'm curious if you have any thoughts on like what Tommy and Bobby's relationship was like before Tommy transferred.
Um, it was great. I think he was the first example of just a non-toxic masculine guy that firefighter that was like you can do both. You can be kind and you can be good and you can be brave. You can do all these things at once. Gerard is just and Brian is such a lovely human being. It's so funny because Gerard is just so like we're at the during the scene. I'm just looking at him and he's like putting on this Gerard face, but he's like under his breath, he's just such a kind guy. But like Gerard's just that guy. He's just like, he's nobody wants to deal with him. So with Bobby though, this was a shock. I never ever would have considered Bobby to not be here.
Hmm.
And so I don't think he also spent enough time with Bobby, but the impact he had, I mean, it changed everything. It like opened him up. In the beginning of that episode, um, when Bobby begins, I mean, by the beginning of that episode, Tommy had opened up with the crew,
Yeah.
but when it came, like, 'cause Tommy has a very bad, in my world, Tommy that I have has a terrible situation with his father, and that imprinted on him. Kind of, he has to do what he's got to do with whoever's above, but like, I expect to be. I expect to be mistreated. I expect to be, this is just what it is. And this is what I got to deal with. Is it me? Maybe, but I don't have time to think about that. Like, that's the thinking that I think was instilled in Tommy before he showed up. And then just seeing how strong Bobby was with Sal, and and I was kind of on Sal's side, and then Sal started like mouthing off. But then when we had a chicken thing, but like just with, and it's the same thing with Pete. It's like when I'm with Pete and I'm talking to Pete, I'm like, I love this guy. Like this guy is so, he's excited to see me. Like Pete Krause is excited to see me, and that to me is like so, like what did I do? Like he's so awesome, and I kind of adopt some of, like he just exudes that. And for Tommy, it's kind of, I don't want to say it's a role model, but it was the first time, because Bobby's just so much more than a role model. He's like a paternal figure.
Hmm.
He has this such a love to him, and he cares, and he's so like dignified, um that he kind of set, I think Tommy, without, and he didn't, Tommy not knowing how to emote, he would just sit back and watch, but he was pretty much modeling himself after Bobby, because by the time you see him now, he's a completely different person than he was. And Bobby showing up and Chimney saving him, um, and all the stuff he went through with Hen, and having to, at the end of Hen Begins, saying,
Yeah.
okay, like usually we don't do this, but I will say this because you're like, that's a step. That's a
Hmm.
step in growth. And with Bobby, it was more of a, it was a, he was inspired by him. He wanted to hang out with him. He wanted to, and he wanted to become a pilot, but he was right there when the 118 needed him,
Hmm.
Tommy. So it's very less, very sad, Katie.
Yeah, I know. Um, okay, so looking ahead past episode 15, what is the fallout of Bobby's death going to look like for Tommy specifically?
Post funeral,
Yeah.
we will have to get back to work and do that. I don't. Tommy doesn't want to go back to a place where he was. I think Tommy likes the man he is now, and I think that through the spirit, like he'll remember Bobby and become, he's become this new man. And I think that with, like with Buck, I mean that's another phase to his growth as a human being in terms of committing, or even just being vulnerable with someone and having something that's true. Um, it's been hard for me having to deal with this. One of my best friends passed recently, which far off from how sudden this Bobby thing was.
Hmm.
So I kind of parlayed it with this, and it's been a really, really rough month. So moving forward, I think Tommy's really good at compartmentalization.
Hmm.
So I think, but I also do think that he will, for the first time in his life, feel it's safe to emote and open up to his fellow 118ers, to others in his life about how important Bobby was. So it's bittersweet.
Um, we talked a little bit last time about Tommy like searching for a family or a connection like the 118 has with each other. Um, what does it mean that Tommy is here in the aftermath of Bobby's death with all of the 118?
Are you asking me as if I know?
Yeah, like what do you think that means to him?
It's an honor for Tommy to be he's a pallbearer. Um, but yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, I don't know necessarily how the dynamics work of if a captain dies. Are we getting Gerard back? Because then, I don't think Tommy's going back to who he was, like I mentioned before. But at the same time, like, I don't have to deal with Gerard. It's a huge, profound loss. So, and Tim just writes just magic. So it's like, I mean, even if I were to say or think, like, he'll throw something at me, I'm like, whew, like it's good and it's heavy. So, I mean, your guess is as good as mine in terms of where this goes. In terms of where the 118, how it stays together, if it doesn't. So, but I don't know where Tommy is. I think he's still at the 217 or was it 237?
It was 217, but I've been convinced that 217 and Harbor are different places now.
Okay, so it's not the same thing.
Well, I don't know.
Harbor Station is where he's always at. Okay. Well, Katie, I can't. I need to ask you questions. I wish I knew, Katie. I wish I had all the answers for you.
That's fine. Sometimes not having the answers is fine.
Something tells me that in your life, a time or two, you learned something that you didn't need to know. You're like, I didn't need to know that.
Uh, yeah,
Maybe.
probably.
Yeah. But good question. All right, keep going. Let's go. Let's do this.
Um, okay. Despite the breakup episode in the first half of season 8, um, Tommy came back fairly quickly in this second half of season 8. How do you feel about Tommy's return in this like back half of season? Do you like where the story has gone or is going?
Yeah, I'm over the moon. I value every day on set. I love it. I love everybody I work with, and you know, as an actor, it's fulfilling. I've mentioned this before. Even just standing in front of the monitor and 50 people on set are quiet, and I'm doing this. Like it's daunting when you think about it. I'm just ready and antsy and excited to get any chance to really help a show or help a scene. And this character Tommy has added a really interesting dynamic to the show, I think, and the fandom seems to really enjoy it, for better or for worse. Either way, it's resonating. But every opportunity is just such a it's like a gift, really, to me. And I will put forth everything that I have to squeeze the most out of that scenic juice, if you know, scenic orange, to get the juice that we
Yeah.
watch,
Uh-huh.
not drink.
That made sense.
Yeah, that's it. I don't even know if it makes sense.
I think it did, yeah. Um, okay, last question. What can you tease about the rest of the season?
I don't think I can, but I can tell you that P. Krause's beautiful face will grace our TV screens. We go back in time for some things, and we get to see a little bit more of events that took place. I think that are substantial in the 911 lore.
Hmm,
But other than that, I'm not too certain. I haven't worked on all of them.
okay.
Yeah, but you'll like it.